It's Friday, August 22nd. Let's talk PlayStation. Let's jump into one of our cover stories right off the bat, and it's mostly because I don't know the complete validity of this news story, and it's one of those situations where it's very likely that it could be just straight up like BS, but let's talk about it anyway because there is some validity to it, at least how I'm seeing it. But apparently there was a canceled Crash Bandicoot and Spyro game, traditional Crash and Spyro game. A recent artist by the name of Ryan Harrison posted a few conceptual pieces that he did on these supposed canceled projects. He apparently worked on the game in 2012, and the project got canceled in 2013, and the actual project of both these games didn't get past pre-beta. So Mr. Ryan Harrison, who is again a conceptual artist for these canceled projects, is under NDA, non-disclosure agreement. He can't necessarily confirm or deny the existence completely of these projects, but he does openly say that, you know, the artwork that he created, he is allowed to post that online, and it is on his DeviantArt profile. Now, I'm reluctant to post any of these pictures right now because it's a whole commercial, you know, non-profit thing, so I will obviously leave a link in the description for everyone to see it, but there's a bunch of pictures, completely original pictures of Crash Bandicoot and Spyro. Yeah, concept art, right? You know, concept art for Pinstripe, some level design, a Spyro level. Now, of course, the reason why this whole news story could be completely fake is because Ryan could be making this up. And you know, anybody can have a DeviantArt account. Anyone can make, you know, art. I mean, people are talented. Who's to say anybody could go and make you know, original Crash Bandicoot art? So there's a very big possibility that this is all a complete, you know, fabrication. However, I'm at least mentioning it because the art actually does look pretty good, and it's always cool to, like, at least, you know, hope for another Crash and another Spyro. We've been talking about this topic for a while, but also it kind of falls in line with a rumor a while ago, which is that a Crash Bandicoot game was in production and it had supposedly been canceled. Now, this is a very old rumor, like over a year old, mostly because it kind of, again, lines up with that time frame, 2012 to 2013, starting date 2012, end of the project 13. But, you know, I mean, these characters have been dormant for so long, I mean, especially Crash Bandicoot, so, I mean, you have to figure the reason why we haven't seen him in so long, at the very least, something must have happened in the background. Now, before I've told you guys, Sony has definitely, you know, they're I'm sure they're talking to Activision about purchasing the rights. I'm sure they want to, you know, maybe fund another game or something. I mean, I guarantee you something along those lines has happened in regards to Activision and Sony. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Activision, you know, wanted to do something with their own property. I mean, of course, they've had these names for how long? They paid for them. So, I mean, it would make sense that they possibly were working on a Crash Bandicoot or Spyro game. And it's certainly possible that they were canceled because we still don't have one. Anyway, moving on. Just recently we talked about Minecraft PS4 being sent to Sony for testing. Well, it looks like Sony actually found a problem with the Minecraft PS4 version, and they had to send it. They pretty much denied the game to come to the PlayStation Store, so 4J has to get back to work on the game, and they're going to have to resubmit it to Sony after they fix the bugs for the game, so that's kind of unfortunate. But that's the whole reason why you send games to Sony for certification, because sometimes they might not pass. So this past week it was confirmed that the PlayStation 3 is getting a price drop in Japan. So the console right now, a 500 gigabyte model, is about 34,000 yen in Japan, which is roughly, you know, it translates pretty loosely, like take off the zero, so it translates to about $340, and it's getting dropped to around 26,000 yen, I think. So roughly 250, 260 bucks, the system would be dropped to. And actually, a certain PlayStation 3 model is being discontinued, and a new one is being put in place. Still a super slim PS3, but you know how they sort of do it. Sometimes they'll just it's a different model number, which just means there's different internals inside the actual system. That possibly makes it cheaper for Sony to manufacture the system, and that would absolutely make sense because you got a new model in place, and so that would mean that the system's more affordable to produce. Thus, they can afford a price cut for the system. Now, while I'm sure I don't have many Japanese viewers, but this is certainly an indication that hardware costs are down for the PlayStation 3, and Sony could possibly cut the price of the system in other territories, and they're certainly due to cut the price in America and PAL territories. I mean, it's certainly due, especially since they've got the PlayStation 4 going. I mean, why not? Sony's always been extremely supportive of their old platforms, so that'd be nice to give the PS3 a little bit of a booster shot, since PS4 is doing extremely well. Anyway, next news story. It was confirmed this week by Sony Computer Entertainment America that Sucker Punch Productions has suffered some layoffs. So there was a reduction in staff at Sucker Punch. No word on how many people were let go, but often at times when this happens, we do like to mention it and say, you know, good luck to everybody at Sucker Punch, the people that left that have lost their jobs. You know, you'll get right back on your feet. I mean, Sucker Punch is a notable studio. That's some pretty good resume material, I would assume. So good luck to those guys. Now let's talk about Tearaway Unfolded, the Tearaway port to PlayStation 4, which more or less kind of isn't a port at this point, because the news story is that 50% of Tearaway Unfolded is entirely new. And if you've played Tearaway, you would know that that is very believable because the game is so heavily built for Vita from the ground up. So the PlayStation 4, you know, translating, you know, taking the game over to a console isn't necessarily going to be that easy. So there is going to be a lot of changes to the game, and Media Molecule has been pretty vocal about what they're doing with the game, which is drastically changing many sections of the game, and of course adding completely new sections entirely. And certain existing portions of the game are actually completely expanded. So you might have you can maybe think of some levels right now in your head. Media Molecule is saying that those certain levels are vastly expanded to kind of cater to the you know, the television experience, right? Often at times, like if you use like remote play with PS4 to Vita, it sometimes doesn't translate well because the screen real estate doesn't transfer properly to the Vita. Whereas, you know, so it kind of works both ways. If you're going from a small screen to a big screen, you've got so much more to use, and that's exactly what Media Molecule is going to do with Tearaway. Okay, now let's talk about Shuhei Yoshida, Sony Worldwide Studios president. You know, we always talk about him because he's a big Sony higher up, and he's doing a lot of interviews. So let's talk about some of those interviews. He was talking to Eurogamer and was talking in regards to Rise of the Tomb Raider's exclusivity with Microsoft. He basically said, you know, he didn't know about it. You know, when he found out is the same time that we all found out, which adds up. It's not like somebody's going to inform him that, hey, Microsoft snatched up an exclusive or a timed exclusive. But what's interesting about what he said is, and it's kind of the same thing I always tell you guys in regards to situations like this, which is, you know, Square Enix has projected sales for these games, right? They project how much they're going to make, how much they expect to make, and hopefully how much profit they can make. So he said, you know, Square Enix has projected sales for this game. So if the game isn't going to come to PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4, that means Microsoft has to account for all those sales that Square Enix is going to lose by possibly selling the game on PS3 and PS4. And that's a lot of money, which is why I told you guys in the Gamescom video that I felt it was a timed exclusive before it was confirmed, because that's just a lot of missed sales to account for. Because when EA did the Titanfall thing, EA lost that gamble. They could have made so much more money if they sold the game on PS3 and PS4. So, which is why, again, I you know, openly think, yeah, the game will come to PS3 and PS4 eventually, because it just cost Microsoft way too much money. And Shuhei more or less feels the same, but he's not completely sure because maybe Microsoft did pay that much money. We don't exactly know. But I mean, they've said it has a duration, but that could possibly mean the game would come to PC eventually, and not PS3, PS4. We still don't know. It's just a matter of waiting. Shuhei Yoshida also revealed this week why Driveclub was drastically delayed. Not just a slight delay, but like upwards to an entire year. And I love when we finally hear stuff about this, right? You always wonder, like, what happened with this delay, or why, you know, blah, blah, blah. Most delays, you know, developers will say, oh, we needed more time to make the experience and whatnot, or blah, blah, blah. But I like that Shuhei was open about this one. He said there was a drastic technical issue with the game. Like, some sort of drastic technical issue was found in Driveclub, and so the game had to, like, have a complete, like, sort of rewrite, and they had to, like, go back and, like, redo a lot of, like, the back end of that game to make it work. And I just really appreciate when we find out that stuff for real. Like, that's what really happened with Driveclub. That's why it was delayed for like a year. Now, possibly one of the most interesting news stories that came out this week was that Shuhei Yoshida is openly surprised that the PlayStation 4 is doing as well as it is in terms of sales. In fact, he's borderline concerned about how well the system is doing. And he kind of goes a little bit in depth with that, which is, you know, and this is all from like sort of a business standpoint, you know, Sony has to understand why people are buying PlayStation 4s, and because, you know, when they find out why people are buying the system, they can kind of, you know, act accordingly. If people are buying it for AAA titles, they'll, you know, invest money there. If they're buying it to, you know, maybe watch a lot of TV services, they'd possibly put some more money into, you know, TV and video services. They got to look at the demographics of the type of people that are buying PlayStation 4, how many games per system are sold, you know, things like that. And you know, I can kind of agree with him, because I never would have thought PlayStation 4 was doing this would do this well. Had you told me a year ago that PS4 would sell this well, I probably wouldn't have believed you. So Shuhei's feeling the same way. I mean, I would have to imagine, like, when Sony was doing R&D for PS4 and building this thing, and right up until actual launch, they, you know, and just like the Square Enix story, they had projected sales, they had projected numbers for how much software they would do, how many games per system they would sell, their demographics, and they're probably just blown away by how well this system is actually doing. I mean, so it's like, I guess it's a good problem to have, right? I mean, like, oh god, we're doing so well and we can't figure out why. So I guess this is like a non-issue issue, but I mean, we've touched on this a few times already. PS4 is doing well, good for Sony. If anything, I like the relevancy it's proving for consoles. You know, I mean, it blows my mind how many people think consoles are dying, or they're on their way out soon, or that, you know, they're not going to be around for much longer. When, you know, realistically, if you're looking at the PS4 and the Xbox One, they're selling at an extremely fast rate, at a much faster rate than their previous, you know, consoles. And compared to, say, the PlayStation 2, PS4 is just selling at a much faster rate. Now, I will definitely say I don't think it will outsell the PS2, or hell, even possibly the PS3. But, you know, when you're still selling millions and millions and millions of consoles and millions of software, like, no, these things aren't going away anytime soon at all. It just shows that the industry is somewhat healthy. It's still got its issues, but I mean, people are still buying consoles, games are still getting you know, bought, so it's still there. But there is issues for sure. I don't want to say it's completely healthy, but you know, it's the market's there. Like, it didn't just go away overnight. Anyway, those are just some of the news stories I want to talk about with you guys this week. Be sure to check out this week's episode of Ryan on Gaming, which is why virtual reality is not a fad. Hear me out, man. Hear me out. Here's why it's not a fad. Seems like a lot of people think it is, even though it's not even a thing yet. So check out that video if you want to see my opinion on that. Anyway, that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you so much for talking with me, and I'll see you guys all next Friday.